So we are live. I said you are live. Okay. You can start.
Now there is no delay.
This is different. Okay. You can start.
So there is only one question, right? So
Little bit louder.
no, so what should I just answer the
No,
question?
just answer.
No. Okay, so welcome to this live session. Uh, so when I came, there was one question about why measure theory is a weird subject and prescribed some books. So in my lectures, I had already given some references, and one can look at those books. Saying that measure theory is a feared subject is sort of misleading. It is it is somewhat new in the sense that it is quite different from what you have learned in your BSc days. So it has its own difficulties, just like any other new topic you will learn. There would be some difficulties, initial difficulties, which you have to uh, keep struggling until you become comfortable with it. After that, it will not be a difficult subject. It's an extremely useful subject in analysis, and essentially anybody who does analysis will use it. So, yeah. Hello, welcome. Good afternoon to you as well. Do you have a question? Okay. We had muted earlier.
Now it will be.
Yeah, now it should be all right. Please type your question. Uh, okay, so I see your question. So, measure theory is a very basic tool in analysis. There is no research as such in measure theory. One needs to learn measure theory to go ahead. Okay, this does not mean that nobody does anything new in measure theory. There are several short papers which will come up uh, sometimes constructing various sets with various measure theoretic and topological properties and so on. But it is a well developed area, so there is not much more to be done in measure theory. You should see it as a tool which can be used in other areas and things like that. Okay. Uh, okay, so I read your question. Is there any results like dominated convergence theorem for functions or derivatives? Can you be more specific with the question? So, in the dominated convergence theorem, it is about functions, right? So, if I have fn's converging to f and almost everywhere, and fn's are dominated by L1 function g, then I have convergence in L1. So, that is for functions. Are you asking if functions converge, then derivatives will converge? Is that your question? Can you be more specific? Yeah. So okay. So if see if you have fn's converging to f, so generally we do this in a measure space. So derivatives will not make sense there. But I assume that your question is about functions defined on, let us say, an interval or the real line or some subsets of Rn where one can talk about derivatives. So if Fn converges to F and if there is a dominating converge function in L1, then the dominating convergence theorem tells you that convergence takes place in L1. It will not tell you anything about the derivatives. Even if Fn's are differentiable, the limit f need not be differentiable. And if Fn's are differentiable, that does not mean that the derivative is in L1. Okay, so the derivative can be bad. For example, look at the function 1 by root x in the open interval 0 1. It is in L1, but if I differentiate, I am going to get a higher negative power of x, right? So that will not be integrable. So derivatives need not be even in L1 to start with or in any LP. So you will not be able to sort of conclude anything about the convergence of derivative without extra conditions. So, but that will depend on the specific problem you have. Okay. suggest some books. So if you look at the lectures, I think in the first or second lecture I have given several references. You can use that. So one or two books I'll highly recommend uh, are one is by E.M. Stein and R. Shakarchi. So this is I think titled Measure Theory. That is one. And you can also look at a book by Royden, H.L. Royden. I think the title is Real Analysis. So these two are very good books. Uh, you can also refer Rudin, Walter Rudin, Real and Complex Analysis. And there are several probability books which will do measure theory in quite generality. One of the books I highly recommend is by Robert Ash. So that is probability and functional analysis. You could also look at a book by Patrick Billingsley. I think that is a book on stochastic processes and things like that. But it has an appendix which describes measure theory. And yeah, and also look at the references I had suggested in the lectures. That's a good set of books. Okay. Indian author. Indian authors. So okay, so there is a book by I.K. Rana. I believe Inder K. Rana. Yeah, so he is from IIT Bombay. You can also look at a book by K.B. Atreya. Uh, and there should also be a book by K.R. Parthasarathi. Okay, so these are good books. Yeah. Yeah, you are welcome. So I guess we will wind up now. There doesn't seem to be any more questions. So if you have any more doubts, please post it in the forum. The TAs or I will answer. Okay. So thank you. 21 minutes.